Hello and welcome. My name is Josh Singh. I'm your host of the Racial Healing Podcast. Welcome. I'm really glad you're here. I started this podcast because I had to do something. I struggled for a long time to figure out what to do about racism. I've always been an ally. I've done my own work around overcoming my own pain and trauma around racism. And I've always known that that is not really enough. So I started this podcast for people to share their stories, to be heard, and for you, the listener, to witness those stories. And my hope is that we can all heal our hearts and our souls from listening and being part of this podcast together. So thank you for being here. Please consider subscribing, and I hope you enjoyed today's interview. Welcome to the Racial Healing Podcast, René and Peter. It's so wonderful to have both of you here. It's been a wild weekend this weekend. It's been a wild month. It's been a wild year. So thanks for taking some time tonight to be with me and with each other and to share. Um, so I want to just start by getting to know you a little bit, and maybe you could share about how you identify in terms of ethnicity. And tonight's podcast is exploring the intersection of ethnicity or race and sexual orientation. So, if you would just share about your identities in those two aspects. Renee?
Hey, thank you, Josh, for having us here. This is such a treat to be interviewed. I was telling some of my friends, I'm like, oh yeah, I'm getting interviewed today. It's so cool. So I identify as a cisgender gay man, and I am from India. My pronouns are he, him, they, I think. Yeah, so I've been in this country since '96, so about 25 years living here. I used to live in Chicago. I lived in Maryland. I lived in Nashville. I've been in Dallas since 2010.
Awesome. Thanks, Renee. Welcome. And how about you, Peter?
Well, thank you for having us. My name is Peter. I identify as a Vietnamese cisgendered gay male. My pronouns are also he, him, and his. I am from the greater Chicago area, out in the suburbs. I was born here in the States, raised in Texas, Houston to be more specific, and then moved to the Midwest in 2008 after finishing up school, and have kind of bounced around and have settled in Chicago since 2014. That's it.
Awesome. So yeah, different experiences right off the bat. Renee having grown up in India and Peter here in the States in Texas. Um, I'd like to hear a little bit about your experience of being you, specifically around race and sexuality in the places that you've grown up and come of age.
So let's see. Obviously, I grew up in India, so we were all Indian, so we didn't really experience any of that. So I think that was really good because I didn't grow up feeling, at least racially, marginalized. So I think that was really good. At least I feel looking back now, because my kids may or may not feel that way growing up here. They were born here and growing up here. But coming out as gay, I'm newly coming out. I'm still not completely out, and I'm sure we'll talk about that a little bit more because I had an arranged marriage when I was 25, and I stayed married for about 18 years. And then coming out is a very slow process, has been a very slow process, just out to a very close family and very close friends only at this point. But obviously, I'm active in the gay community. I have a lot of gay friends. I'm out to obviously all of my gay friends. But in terms of who am I out to, in terms of my own community and my own family of origin, that is slow in unfolding.
Mm.
But my brothers and sisters know, and my ex obviously knows, and my kid knows. So that's, I mean, just keeping it there right now, and it's almost on a need to know basis. If somebody needs to know, then they'll know.
So how is it for you to be on this podcast where this will be put on YouTube and people could discover what we talk about tonight?
Yeah, and I guess that's a risk. Um, and people will find out, and I guess that's I'm learning to be okay with it. I think for a lot of ways, it's gonna happen eventually,
Mm-hmm.
and there is still a lot of stigma around it, and people are gonna find out eventually. And I think in a lot of ways, I think I am learning to be okay with it. I think it is what it is.
Yeah, kind of letting go. I hear letting go of what happens.
Yeah, letting go of what happens.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Mhm. Thank you, Renee. Peter, can you share some about like where you grew up and the dynamics there around race and sexuality?
Yeah. So, I grew up around a predominantly non-Asian community. Uh, Houston is very Hispanic populated. So, when I was growing up, I was surrounded by predominantly Hispanics when it came to not being in school. But in school, I was surrounded by predominantly white people. So I've always kind of felt this thing where I am out of place. I never, even when it comes to being amongst members of the Asian community, I still feel like I'm out of place because, the fact that I am a gay man, um, recognized it fairly early on growing up, like around 8 or so, that, I had these tendencies towards other men that was taught that was wrong. So, kind of being this outcast in the community of school and, where I spent most of my non-school time, which was at my parents' grocery stores, which were in Hispanic communities. So I've always kind of felt out of place there and then out of place amongst the Asian community. And that's a struggle I've dealt with most of my life. I still deal with that struggle now, kind of trying to figure out where I fit in and how do I fit in. And then on top of that, my father, I am the only male child he's got. I am the youngest of three children, but I am his only male uh, child. And my father is the oldest of eight children in his family. So out of about 30 plus cousins in my generation, I kind of hold this particular seat of honor, being the oldest son of the oldest son. So I felt like I had a lot to live up to growing up. And knowing that I was gay, it was really hard for me to kind of reconcile being this, oh my God, how am I going to set an example for the younger members of a generation, um, while knowing that I may never bear children. I didn't think I was ever going to get married. um, and I was just like, this is a secret that I'm going to have to hide for the rest of my life. So while I couldn't hide the fact that I wasn't a member of the racial community, I could hide the fact that I was not a member of the heterosexual community.
Mm-hmm.
So it's been a struggle for me growing up, and even like I said to this day, whenever I walk into a new room full of people I don't know, I immediately tend to focus on what makes me different as opposed to what makes me the same as these people.
Mm.
And that's just my shadow that's been speaking to me all my life.
Yeah. Well, thank you for sharing that, Peter. Um, yeah, I really feel you on that. And are there spaces, Peter, where you can go and feel like I definitely belong here and like other people are like me or enough like me where like I belong?
Not yes and no. It whenever I go into any community, whether I'm an avid knitter, so I attend a
Mm.
lot of these knitting meetups and knitting events and stuff like that. I still kind of focus on the fact that I am in the minority when it comes to being even in the knitting community because I'm a man, and sadly, most not sadly, I should say, but unfortunately for me, one of my favorite hobbies, is very female centric.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm surrounded by a lot of females and well, some, at times kind of get these looks like, oh my God, what are you doing invading our space? But for the most part, most of the knitting community is very, very inclusive and open. It's a space where, I always find myself like the token Asian person or the token gay person or the token man or the token whatever. Uh, and it's rare that I come across a situation where I feel like this is where I belong.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I hear you. Thank you, Peter. Renee, you mentioned arranged marriage. So my dad's from India, and I have a number of family members who've had arranged marriages. But I'd like to hear about your experience with having an arranged marriage, where you were in your thought process about your sexuality at that time, and just sort of to hear some of your story around that.
So I always had thoughts about being gay, and there was so much pressure in India to get married, and
Mm.
I made a feeble attempt to like, yeah, maybe it's not for me, just mentioning it to my parents, and like, everybody was freaking out, like, oh my God, why doesn't he want to get married? So there was a lot of pressure to get married, and I'm the youngest of 5 kids, and I just couldn't do it. I just couldn't do it. At the time, I had just left India, and I was working. I was a student. I think I was studying here, and I was still, uncertain. I wasn't sure what I was feeling, and I truly did not want to be gay. I hated the fact that I had those thoughts and feelings, and I was like, yeah, I don't want to be gay, and I truly believed that as I'll get married, I'm going to have kids, and I'm going to devote myself and the rest of my life to kids and my wife, and that would be it.
Mm-hmm.
And so I went into this marriage like fully intending it to be forever. And we had a good run. We had 18 years, and till this date, I think we are each other's best friends and continue to support each other. But during these 18 years, eventually it started to catch up with me, and I kept getting into this deeper and deeper depression, being not living. I mean, continue to live this lie on a daily basis, like always constantly fearing, like, oh my God, like if I like walk this way, or if I dress this way, if somebody's going to find out. And it just started to uh, get too much. I This numerous time I had suicidal ideations, and I think during one of my this depression bout, I planned to kill myself, and I'm like, I just probably everybody would be better off if I was just dead. And luckily, obviously, I didn't go through with it, and I just broke down, and I came out to my ex, and she has been extremely supportive, and she's like, okay, you know what, this is what you want to do. And we didn't think about it much, now looking back, and I was just, we went to a therapist, like, okay, okay, we're done, we're moving on. And next thing I knew, I mean, I moved out, and it really happened really fast. The decision, once we decided we're gonna do it, it was just like bam, 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 bam. But I really think my ex, she had been amazingly supportive through all this, and my kids have been like completely like on board. My sister, she lives in Chicago. Like amazing. I've never felt so loved and so much support. And I think in a lot of sense, it brought us much closer. I'm like, I talk to my ex all the time still. It's kind of weird, like some people think like, oh my God, why are you talking to her? I'm like, yeah. We actually had a good relationship, even though, you know, we had a good life, we had a good run, our kids are normal, there's nothing, they're, obviously, like both most brown kids, they're top of the classes, they're uh, they're going into good colleges, they're really good kids. And I mean, I looking back, I'm like an idiot, like why did I want to leave a perfectly fine situation? But the thing was, if you think about it, I was about ready to kill myself. So like, you know what, if I, even though the thing was wonderful, beautiful, everything was just fine, but if I wasn't happy from within myself, and I got to a point that I was just gonna end it all there, and all the repercussion of that, like if I'm gonna just end my life, might as well just live my life, right? So yeah, and deal with whatever happens. Like if people are gonna see this podcast, and people are gonna find out, and they're gonna come and like harass me, whatever, And that's why I think I'm glad that I live here in US, and I don't have to deal with this day to day. I mean, I had to completely cut off from my Indian community. I just don't want to deal with it. I made my own friends, and a lot of them are Indians. A lot of them Indians friends now, but some of my closest friends are still Indians, but they know about me, and they love and accept me, and so I had to start over in terms of friendships, so who I hung out with, and it wasn't like I had a boyfriend as soon when we were breaking up. I was still married, very much married, and it was so hard because when we decided to break up, and I walked out, and I was like, oh my god, like okay, maybe I'll have a boyfriend like within 5 minutes, and nothing happened for years, and I was alone in an apartment and not happy. It's like, oh, here I am living in a big house with full family and kids and a full life and full social life. You know how in brown people are, like there are parties every like 3-4 parties every weekend, and just like that, I walked out and nothing.
Wow.
So like next couple of years were really hard to be just alone, alone in an apartment, and people finding out like, oh my god, you have a girlfriend, you have a new wife, like you have a baby from another woman, like what's going on, like you're living this. Did you find a white woman to get married? And just none of that. There was nothing, and like I'm like, yeah, there's nobody else. Like why can't you get it? Like, there's nobody else. I'm just like, our marriage is over. But yeah, it was hard. It was hard. And my suicidal ideation, let me just say that it did not stop when I left the house. Actually, it got worse. Luckily, I got a lot of help, a lot of therapy, and a lot of, social support groups.
So Renee, let me ask you a question. I don't mean to preempt you here, Josh, but
I'll just sit back and chill. Go ahead, Peter.
You said that you cut yourself. I mean, you had to make new friends and all that kind of stuff, and you are separated from the Indian community now. Was that your choice, or was that something that was kind of forced upon you? Like, did your Indian community push you out when you came out, or was that just your choice?
I'm
Because
not out. Well, not yet. They're gonna see this maybe. No, it was my choice. I just left. Because most of our friends were our couple friends. Even if they were friends of mine, eventually, because like some of my high school friends, college friends who are in Dallas, and they were obviously married, and so we became couple friends. But everybody knew that I left, so for whatever reason, nobody reached out to me. So that was if somebody reached out to me, I had made up my mind. Like if my own friends, like the guys I went to college with, like I went to high school with, they didn't call me when they found out that I have left. So they left me alone, and that friend circle stayed, I should say, loyal to my ex, which I'm glad that she had the support she needed. So yeah, because it was hard for both of us. It was hard for everybody.
Of course.
And she got the support. I'm like, okay, you get to keep all the friends. You get to keep all the drama of Desi. Like I'm gonna go. I'll survive. I'll figure it out. So.
And did that come out of your like some guilt that you were feeling at the time, where you let her have everything?
No, I mean, like, it's like I didn't want to go and explain like why I was leaving. I just wasn't ready for it. So it was just easier. Like, you know what? I'm just out. Just for now. We'll see in the future. And again, it's on a need to basis. And if somebody needs to know, we can talk about it. If not, then oh well.
And Peter, what I saw you identifying with some parts of Renee's story at one point. You raised your hand, which indicated to me that you identified with some of the hard times, the depression. Can you share some of your journey around that?
Yeah, so I mean, I live my life in a constant state of depression at some level. There's always some level of depression and anxiety here, and I think every Asian can identify with this whole. I don't want to disappoint my family. I don't want to disappoint my parents. There's always such this high bar set that any kind of failure just gets magnified immensely. So, there's no participation trophy in the Asian community. You participated, great. Here's your trophy, sort of thing. It's always, let's focus on what you did wrong instead of what you did right. So there's a lot of, I identify with the suicidal ideation. Comes up a lot for me, actually, even to this day, where I kind of feel like, where is my place in this world? People would be better off without me. I feel like I'm just a burden because I can't, uh, make anybody proud of me. Um, and I know that, I should really feel proud of myself for being who I am and having succeeded in the ways that I have succeeded in my life. But there are still those key factors of where I have failed, or what I view as a failure, even though it may not be a failure. Coming out, it should not be seen as a failure, but at the same time, it's like, well, if I hadn't come out, then I wouldn't have been what I judge as this disappointment to my parents. And what if I had just gotten into this marriage of convenience where the woman knew that I was gay, but she was willing to keep that secret and willing to bear children for me? And that way, at least my parents would be proud of the fact that I bore them grandchildren. But that's just something that I couldn't do. I tried living that lie, of being this man who was interested in women, all throughout, you know middle school and high school, not really coming out to anybody. I didn't even come out to my parents until I was in my mid 30s. And it just it didn't work for me, and I couldn't do it. And it wasn't, I didn't have suicidal ideation because I was gay or because I am gay. That's not at all the reason for it. It's just this crushing feeling of feeling like I can't do anything right. Even though, a lot of people have told me, you're a great person, and you're great at what you do. You're so talented and everything. Uh, there's still just this inner voice that just says, yeah, but you didn't do this, and this is one of those quote unquote key markers that lets you know that you have succeeded in your life and you have fulfilled your duties as a son. So, I think it's a very common, uh, sentiment for Asian males in particular, because you can't fulfill this part of your life that you're supposed to in this traditional fashion. Get married, have a family, have children, stay married, and just carry on with everything and don't be different.
Right. And I think I can identify with that too. Somehow trying to live up to somebody else's expectation of what a successful person is. Like it's some imaginary person made this yardstick, like you have to have this to be successful. And now we're all trying to live up to that. It's just like, and we always constantly fall short because that yardstick keeps changing. And whoever created this yardstick, I don't even know. And I think I feel the same way. I'm always measuring myself up to this supposedly a measure of success, and constantly falling short. And my life is good. Like I have a good job. I make decent money. And even when I was married and I had 2 kids, and that didn't fix it. Like I know, Peter, you mentioned that if you were married and had kids and would have fixed everything, it doesn't. In my mind, I still kept falling short. It's like, okay, this is, I should have been making like twice as much money. I should have been, had so much promotions already. I should have, 2 BMWs, and it just never ends. It's like I don't know where these conditioning comes from, but obviously it's a lot of it is cultural. So we grow up to have these parameters set in our brain that, oh, I must have this to be called successful. And a lot of this, living here now is a very modest apartment. I sold my BMW, and I have like a Toyota now, and just like I have a very modest car, modest house. I have like very bare minimum furniture. I'm like living a very minimalist life. So I had a lot of unlearning to do. It's like, to just let go of all these expectations that, I had put on myself, or whoever community had put on me, or my family. Is like, okay, this is all you need to have to be successful. I'm like, no, bullshit. Maybe I just do yoga all day long, and maybe that's my measure of success. I don't know.
Well, I just want to pause here and say thank you both so much for just telling your truth and telling your story. I really have very deep respect for both of you, for what you've shared and for what you've lived through, the choices that you've had to make. And I wanted to say, Peter, I want to get in that line of people who are telling you how great you are. So uh, if you'll let me join in on that, I'm in on that too. You too, Renee, both of you. So just want to say that, pause there to say that. So yeah. Yeah, the burden, I hear so much burden and difficult choices of like being true to yourself and who you are and who you know yourself to be, and wanting to be, like, really sincerely, truly wanting to be who the people who raised you, who they wanted you to be, and having to sit with that, and just the tension and the depth of pain that creates. So I hear you, both of you. So I wanted to ask, this is a racial healing podcast, and um, I hear both of you have talked about a lot of pain. I'd like to hear some about what you have found that's been healing for you. Where have you found your growth? Where have you found your inspiration? Where have you found your safety? Um, yeah.
I think for me, it has been I think I have to say it has been my spiritual growth. Um, Sitting in meditation, hour, 2 hour, 3 hour a day, doing my yoga practice, doing my breathing pranayams. And I think that nothing has centered me more than that. When I was living alone in my apartment, um, not knowing what to do. I didn't know how to cook. I still don't know how to cook. Uh, I manage. Uh, but I think that was key. Like finding my own higher power. It's like my own God, like not the God of my religion per se, because a lot of in Hindu gods have, at least in the movies. I don't know. Nobody really taught me religion in India. At least in the movies, like they're so God was such a fearful concept. Like if you didn't do like what the gods wanted you to do, you get punished. Like, and if you like ate something on a Thursday which the gods didn't want you to eat, and then you get like, or if you have fasting on Thursday and you ate something, then you get punished for it. Or all these punishment based gods. I really had to let go of that. I'm like, you know what? I don't care for a punishing God, because that's not what my God said. My God is completely loving. And for me, that whole idea of that I can have a higher power that accepts me and loves me just the way I am, and all I need is a connection to Him, and that's all it took, I think, to just find that groundedness. And it's a constant reminding also. It's like, okay, you know what? It's okay. It's okay. And I have that. So having developed a daily practice of yoga and meditation, more meditation actually, that was what I think for me was really healing. And I used to do meditation. I grew up doing yoga and meditation since I was 8 years old. But I think last 4 or 5 years, I think I really took it to the next level, and just immersed myself in it. And even when I was living at home, I remember like the last, just before I was leaving, I would like get up at 4 or 5 in the morning and just sit for 2 3 hours in the morning before going to work. And I knew I was going crazy, and if I wasn't doing my meditations, I think I would have probably be gone already right now. And that really centered me. I did a Vipassana course for 10 days, that brought so much clarity. Being the 10-day Vipassana, just like complete silence, like no talking for 10 days,
Wow.
and just doing 14 hours of meditation every day. I was just, yeah, huge. And I did it like, I think I had already made plans to go. I think I left home in
And
August, I
Renee,
believe.
tell me a bit more about how the meditation helped you heal. So, what was the impact of the meditation?
I think the biggest thing was the sense of peace. It's like it didn't really matter anymore, right? It didn't really matter what anybody thought about me. It didn't really matter what I did or didn't do. I knew I was going to be okay. I knew it was going to be okay. I knew that my life had a meaning and my life had a purpose.
Hmm.
And I'm going to be called to that, and it's going to be okay. And no matter what, I think it's going to be okay.
Nice. Thank you. How about for you, Peter? Where have you found healing?
For me, my healing journey really only began a few years ago. Um, I found a lot of it through the Mankind Project. It's been incredible for me to be able to let go of all of these preconceived notions of what I was supposed to be as a man or what I was supposed to do. My therapist has introduced me to a concept of firing my God. It was, I was raised Catholic, so homosexuality, big no no in the Catholic religion. So that therein lies another area where I would walk into church growing up and be like, I don't belong here. I'm just waiting for God to strike me down because even though we are all supposed to be made in His image, apparently I'm this aberration because of who I find myself attracted to. But having to fire the God that I grew up knowing and developing a new sense of what a higher power wants me to feel, which is just to be happy, has been a good way for me to kind of start to heal those wounds that have been inflicted at such a young age. When it comes to healing the wounds that were created by these expectations that were put upon me growing up, those are wounds that I'm still trying to heal. I've got a good career. I'm in a great marriage now. Drive a nice car and all that good stuff. But I'm learning to accept that what I've done is enough, and I don't have to strive to do anything beyond what my capabilities are. There's not this, I have to do better. Just knowing that what I'm doing is enough right now and is what makes me happy is enough. But those are very, very deep wounds, and I can talk a great game about how I am happy doing what I do, and I'm happy with my life right now. But that's all surface stuff, and I would be lying if I said that I was really truly happy and I didn't feel those feelings anymore of failure and disappointment.
Mm.
But they are tough wounds to heal, and right now in the time of coronavirus and everything, yellow people have become a target of oppression, much like brown people were a target of oppression after 9/11, and how this horrible situation going on across the country with Black Lives Matter, how black people are the target of oppression. And it hurts my heart every time I see any kind of racial oppression going on, just because I know what it feels like to be the target of racial oppression, sexual oppression, so many different types of it, that it's they're wounds that I don't know if we will ever be able to fully heal within my lifetime. But I can certainly hope that we start to take steps in the right direction to do so.
Mhm.
But the Mankind Project has been really, really key for me in helping me heal those wounds and start to heal them. All the support I get from them and from my husband has been phenomenal, and my therapist, of course.
Gotta love the therapist.
Gotta
Uh,
love a therapist.
oh, thank you, Peter. Yeah. So As I've been listening to both of you share, I've been imagining like a gay Asian teenager listening to you, being like, "It's going to be okay." There's these two guys that are showing me that I'm going to be okay. That makes me very happy to know that your stories are going to be out in the world for people to access. Um, if you think of a teenage kid or a younger person who's gay, male, Asian, Indian, Vietnamese, what would you want to say to that kid? What advice would you give, or what would you tell to that youngster?
I think the biggest thing is, I think at the end of the day, I truly believe that we don't have to follow anybody else's path. I think each one of us is unique and each one of us is enough. And we have our own path, and nobody needs to follow me, and I don't need to follow anybody. And I think we shine when we are in our true essence. If we are following somebody else, we are not really shining because we are just standing behind somebody. The only way we can ever really truly shine is when we step into, or I should say about me, when I step into my own essence. I actually created a meditation about it. I am enough. It's on the Insight Timer app and also on my YouTube channel, talking about that. I was just inspired about it. I'm like, you know what? I can't shine walking anybody else's path. And if somebody else is hearing about it, then I just know uh, that your path is your own path, and you just have to let your truth out and live your truth. And if you believe in chakra systems, that's your throat chakra, and that's important. It's you really want spiritual growth, then you have to live your truth and show your truth and be in your truth, and not hide behind somebody else. And just, and if things get hard, and they will, but that's life. But you will do great, I think, if you can step into who you truly are and let that come out.
Thank you, Renee. I'm going to take notes after this podcast is over to remember all of what you advised. Peter, how about you?
For me, what I would probably tell anybody really, doesn't have to be necessarily a gay Asian teenager, but I know that being a gay Asian teenage male or female who hasn't yet come to grips with feeling like they are a good person inside is just to know that you're not alone. That's the struggle I had growing up, is that feeling like I was alone and I was the only one of my kind, and there was nobody out there I could reach out to and talk to about these things. But the truth is, you're not alone. You have resources and support out there, and it's much easier now in today's day and age than it was back in the 80s and 90s to find that support system, um, and to have those resources out there who can help guide you through any troubling thoughts that you may have right now. Um, even if you don't know if you're going to succeed in making it as a great doctor or a lawyer or whatever high profile Asian profession you want to bring to your family, you can at least be proud of who you are and know that who you are is not wrong. That was the message that I had growing up, that I was wrong. I was a mistake. What I was feeling was wrong. And that's the message that needs to stop. What you feel in your heart is not wrong. It is who you are. It is your truth. And the sooner you own it, the easier your life is going to be.
Thank you, Peter. And thank you both, Renee Cook and Peter Nguyen, for joining the Racial Healing Podcast. You both have touched me very deeply, and I'm very appreciative of you coming and spending some time here with me tonight.
Thank you, Josh. I do
Thank
appreciate
you.
it.
Yeah.
I do find it appropriate that we are recording this the day before Pride Month starts. So, let's own that within ourselves and celebrate who we are as people, even though right now the world is in such turmoil.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Josh, for inviting us. This is wonderful.
Absolutely.
As an opportunity to share some thoughts and feelings, and maybe whoever needs to hear it will hear it.
Exactly. Yes, I'm sure that there are people who are going to benefit from hearing what both of you shared tonight.